All right, everybody, welcome back. So, since the Flyers made the Provorov trade, but now that a lot has happened, I've been wanting to make a video on the Flyers for a while. And how I feel about this team now compared to how I felt about them last year has changed drastically. Under Chuck Fletcher last year, I was not optimistic. I wanted him gone. I was calling for him to get fired for months, around a year at that point. I wanted him gone. I didn't think he was a good GM. I thought he was just a menace to society. And thank God we finally fired him. We have Briere came in, Jonesy came in. And I will admit, for Flyers fans that watch those videos, I was wrong. I was very wrong on how I felt about Keith Jones and Danny Briere. Um, I didn't like it because it was another Flyer taking over, but I thought about it more since then. Keith Jones, he's been in this business for a long time. He's commentated the Flyers games for years, so he's seen everything. He knows what Philly fans are about. He knows what Philly fans want. And I think they really came up clutch during the draft and free agency as well, and even before the draft as well, making some notable trades. So we'll start off with the trades. Of course, they traded Ivan Provorov over to the Columbus Blue Jackets. They also traded Kevin Hayes over to the St. Louis Blues. And I believe the trade will be valid on July 9th, but they are going to trade Tony DeAngelo to the Carolina Hurricanes. So they're making moves, and they're doing something that, first off, Chuck Fletcher never did. Chuck Fletcher was always like, "Oh yeah, I love the roster we have. We're going to make the playoffs." Now, it's looking like we're heading towards that rebuild direction, which I'm not against. However, I do have some questions in regards to, well, how are we going to do this? Are we going to trade those players? Are we going to trade this player? Do these players fit our prime? There's a lot of questions here in Philadelphia that are not very negative, really. If that makes any sense. I like this team a lot more now. I really do. So we'll move on to the draft. And the draft I was optimistic on because this is a deep draft, and this is the perfect draft for Danny Briere to start off first. We get a blessing at 7th overall. Matvei Michkov drops to Philadelphia at 7th. That was an absolute blessing. We needed that. And that makes this future substantially brighter. Not until like 25, 26 though, or 26, 27. That is when he'll come over. Yes, it's going to be a little bit. It's going to be probably another 2 to 3 years of just painful hockey before Michkov gets here. However, that's good. That's actually very good. Because then, by the time Michkov comes over, I'm pretty confident in saying this, we will have other pieces here that when he comes over here immediately, we get him on an entry-level contract, we will be a playoff team. 100%. We will 100% be a playoff team by the time he comes over here. Right now, we're not. We're probably going to be last in the league next year, or close to last in the league. That's good, because then that way we have good odds for another high draft pick next year and a stacked draft as well. So it's looking really good. And with Michkov, a guy who's a generational forward, an elite player, a franchise player, and like a franchise goal scorer, it's something that, at least in my lifetime, the Flyers have never had. Since Eric Lindros probably left in 2002 or around the period when he left, we have not had anyone like that. Not even Claude Giroux, not even Danny Briere, not even any of the guys who run in the management right now. None of them. Nobody on the team right now is anywhere close to what Michkov is projected to be. So yeah, that's why, getting Michkov is absolutely huge for us, and it's a game changer for our future. And now, the direction that we go in is all going to probably revolve around Michkov. So, who else do we have that's young and still has good shots? We drafted Oliver Bonk as well with our other pick in the first round of the draft. I like that deal a lot because I wanted to get a defenseman with that 22nd pick, and we did. We got a solid top 4 D-man in Bonk who's projected to be that. So yeah, I like the Bonk pick a lot as well. We wanted to amp up our blue line, and that's been something I've been complaining about for like ages. So I'm definitely glad that we got Bonk on the roster. Cutter Gauthier, we drafted 5th overall last year. I like the Cutter Gauthier draft. Of course, like you add those, and that's already a solid prospect pool right there. You got Michkov, you got Gauthier, and you got Bonk as well. So that's already some pretty solid forwards in the mix there, and defensemen. some pretty solid players in the mix there for a good prospect pool. Not to mention you have Tyson Forster too, who looked very positive in the American Hockey League with the Lehigh Valley Phantoms. Will take a step to the NHL next season. I'm not ashamed in saying that. They also got Bobby Brink too. Brink as well had very good college years with Minnesota, I believe, or Wisconsin. I can't remember. I'm not good with the colleges, but he came over a little bit this year, played pretty well. You also have Ivan Fedotov, and Fedotov, there's a little bit of optimism there. He could be playing in the KHL like Michkov, but if we do decide to trade Carter Hart, which I don't think we will, but Fedotov is a solid goalie, and he will, if he comes over, he will be a solid, probably starter or maybe a backup. I'm not entirely too sure of what his potential could be, but he has a pretty good shot at being a very solid goalie. It's just with the Russian situation that's a little bit of a concern, and as well as that too. I'll go back to the Michkov contract. I'm not worried about that. I'm really not worried about the Michkov deal. Besides the Russian things like with them with the Fedotov situation, that's the thing that I'm worried about with Philly. However, it's kind of like college. People are saying, "Oh, he's not coming over until 2026." And we're not going to be contending. We're not making the playoffs next year. We're not making the playoffs the year after that. We probably won't even be close to the playoffs until he gets over here. So it works out perfectly for us. And it's also like Bobby Brink, for example, who we drafted in 2019 and literally started playing games this year when the draft was like, what, 3-4 years ago? So that is something else you got to keep in mind there too. But yeah, those are the guys that are basically on this roster or basically in the organization right now that have not played games yet or not played many games yet that are looking solid for us. The guys who have played games and the guys who impressed me a lot this year. Travis Konechny, of course. He's always been that player that's impressed me. Still a very young, 26 years old, solid forward. It can be physical at times, can be a chippy player. But Konechny still solid. Owen Tippett had a really good year this past season that many people are not talking about. I went to a game where Tippett scored a hat trick, so I'm very optimistic with Tippett there as well. Joel Farabee, and Farabee kind of had a little bit of a meh year because he was hurt for the first half of the season. Then he came in, started finding his game. If he gets a fully healthy year, I think he will have a bounce back season. Noah Cates was a Selke contender and a Calder contender as well. Was a very solid defensive type center. Morgan Frost, I thought, had a really good year compared to previous seasons. Cam York, there's still a lot of optimism with him. He's a solid defenseman, especially with Oliver Bonk coming in. That could be the next pairing of the team. And then, of course, Carter Hart, because you can't forget Carter Hart. There are some other players, too, like there are older players like Delorier, Lofton, Couturier. There's some other questions in Philadelphia, but I'm mainly focusing on the future right now and what they kind of did this offseason and not those guys. But yeah, you look at that overall, that is a pretty young, that is a somewhat young core there. The oldest one, I believe, is Konechny at 26, if I'm correct. So that is your core right there. I understand all of those players aren't going to play. All those players probably aren't going to stay either. There are rumors around Hart and Konechny and Farabee, and there are rumors around some of those other players. But it is looking at that, it is optimistic what our future is. And I think we're in a better spot than a lot of other teams were when they were starting their rebuild. Because technically, I thought we started a rebuild 2 years ago. But Fletcher was just like, nah. But yeah, overall, I like the core a lot. Now, who we signed in free agency, I like even more. We signed Garnet Hathaway to a 2-year, $2.375 million extension or $1 million deal. I like Hathaway a lot. He plays like a flyer. He has the grit. He has the chippiness. He's that solid of a player. We also signed Ryan Paling to a 1-year, $1.4 million deal. Paling, younger player, will fit on that third, fourth line most likely as a effort player. Not that bad of a signing. They also signed Rhett Gardner, who is more of an AHL forward, but to a 2-year, $775K deal. I like the Gardner signing as well. And they also signed veteran Mark Stahl to a 1-year, $1.1 million deal. It's weird to think Mark Stahl's on the Flyers. Really strange. After all his years with the Rangers and the Red Wings and the Panthers, it just feels really weird that he's now on the Flyers. But hey, probably going to be his last year in the NHL, so let's give him a good one. But overall, and with those signings, they aren't bad signings. They're more or less signings to fill up roster spots, if we're being honest. And I know people were complaining about, oh, why don't give the young guys spots? They need to earn them. They're not going to get them through just, us giving them to them. They need to earn them. Because if we just give them to them, then they're not going to know, like, I don't really know how to word this, but they're not gonna pan out very well. If they have to earn the spots, then they'll be a better player overall. So, yeah, I mean, in conclusion, like I am so much more happy and excited about this team's future than I was a year ago. I was saying to myself, yeah, this team's gonna be terrible for the next like 3, 4 years or 5 to 6 years or something like that. And yeah, that could be possible. We never know what's gonna happen. We don't know what's gonna happen. But so far, I believe Danny Briere is like 3-0 in trades. He's made some really good draft choices. I like both our picks in this year's draft. He made some solid free agency signings. We weren't even really. I didn't expect us to make any free agency signings, but we got Garner Hathaway, we got Orlov, or we got Stahl, not Orlov. We got Paling. We got some solid players here in Philly, and we have already a younger core than most teams had during a rebuild. I'm not sure if that means we'll trade them, but that does mean that there is a brighter future ahead here in Philadelphia. So, anyways, thank y'all for watching. I want to make a video on this for a long time. I'm finally glad I was able to. But anyways, thank y'all for watching. I know I'm going to be making more Flyers videos over the offseason. So, yeah, thank y'all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Adios.